Before America had skyscrapers, superhighways, and streaming apps. Before European kings wore crowns of polished gold. Before textbooks tried to shrink African history to a paragraph. There existed a kingdom so wealthy, so powerful, so advanced, that the world struggled to describe it without sounding unbelievable. This kingdom stood in West Africa, a land of red earth, wide rivers, and sunlit horizons, a land whose greatness rarely appears in American classrooms. Its name was Mali. This empire shattered every stereotype. Now, picture this. The year is 1324. Europe is drowning in plagues. Most of the world is battling famine. But in West Africa, the Mali Empire is shining like the sun. Caravans stretch for miles across the Sahara, camels carrying salt, scholars carrying knowledge, and traders carrying gold so pure and plentiful that nations would rewrite their economies after meeting Mali's leader. And that leader was Mansa Musa, the richest man in human history. Not richest for his time, not richest in Africa, richest ever. His wealth was so immense that when he traveled, the value of gold dropped for over a decade because he gave so much away. But Mali's greatness wasn't just wealth, it was wisdom. Timbuktu, a city within Mali, became the heart of world scholarship. Imagine Harvard, Oxford, and the Library of Congress combined in the 1300s in Africa. Ancient manuscripts covered mathematics, medicine, astronomy, literature, philosophy, law, and spirituality. Students travel from Europe and the Middle East just to learn from African scholars. This wasn't a forgotten corner of the world. This was a global center of excellence. Now here's the part that hits home for Americans, a connection that schools don't teach. By the time the first Europeans reached West Africa, many came face to face with people from empires like Mali, people who were educated, multilingual, wealthy, and sophisticated. Yet centuries later in America, these same Africans would be labeled as primitive. In U.S. classrooms, children would grow up hearing that Africa had no civilization, that African kingdoms were tribal, that black history started with slavery. But the truth? Black history did not begin in chains. It began in empires. Empires where universities existed before many European nations were even formed, where architecture was advanced enough to match global powers, where trade networks connected continents, where mathematics and astronomy were deeply studied, where governments collected taxes, built roads, managed armies, and maintained order. Imagine a black child in America learning that the richest human being ever recorded looked like them, that a world-famous university existed in Africa centuries before the first American college opened, that their ancestors came from places of power, intelligence, and audacity. Imagine how different identity would feel, how different confidence would grow, how different history would be remembered. Let's return to Mansa Musa, the king whose story still stuns economists. In 1324, he embarked on a journey, a 3,500-mile pilgrimage to Mecca. He didn't travel quietly. His caravan stretched across the desert like a moving city. Thousands of soldiers, scholars, builders, musicians, and nobles. Dozens of camels carrying pure gold. And everywhere he passed, Egypt, Arabia, the Middle East, people stared, stunned, whispering, "Who was this African king?" He gave gold to the poor. He built mosques. He funded scholars. He changed local economies just by traveling. European mapmakers, hearing stories of his African emperor, rewrote their world maps and placed a black king holding a golden orb in the center of West Africa. America teaches children about ancient Rome in detail, about Greek philosophers endlessly, about European kings and queens, page after page. But the empire that once dazzled continents, the empire whose leader reshaped global currency, the empire whose scholarship shaped generations, is reduced to silence in most U.S. history books. This story matters today because this story exposes a truth. Black history is not small. Black history is not broken. Black history is not a side chapter. It is global. It is powerful. It is foundational. And for African Americans who never learned this in school, the story of Mali is more than history. It is healing. It is proof that before the horrors of slavery, before the trauma of racism, before the fight for civil rights, Black people came from places of brilliance, strength, organization, and prosperity. It reminds a whole generation that you are the descendant of empires, not just oppression. You come from scholars, not stereotypes. You inherit innovation, not inferiority. And when America forgets that, we must tell the story again, and again, and again. Today, the sands of old Mali still hold secrets. The manuscripts of Timbuktu still rest in hidden libraries. The descendants of great West African empires walk the streets of New York, Atlanta, Houston, Chicago, and Los Angeles, their greatness mistaken for coincidence. But when you know the story, when you truly know, you walk differently, you speak differently, you dream differently, because you realize you are part of a legacy that the world tried to forget, but never could. And this channel exists to remind the world of that, to breathe life back into forgotten histories, to honor Africa's truth, to give Black Americans a story worthy of their identity, a story worthy of their strength, a story worthy of their future. Welcome to the journey. Welcome to the truth. Welcome to the story of Mali, one of Africa's greatest empires, and one of America's greatest untold lessons. If this story resonated with you or taught you something new, please show your support by hitting the like button. Tap subscribe to stay connected to these vital stories and pieces of history. And most importantly, your perspective matters. Drop a comment below and share your reflections on this part of our journey. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.